What we do here is go back.
Yeah, we got to get into it. What's big? What's going on? We got ourselves the Champions League finalist. It is... Who are we starting with first? Anyhow, it is Liverpool. It is Real Madrid. One team that Fabs probably thought was going to be in the finals from the start, Real Madrid. He's been on that for the entire... Since we started the podcast.
Yep.
Salute to you for calling that. My sleepers there, Liverpool. Don't ask me how they got there, but they did. Shout out to the sleepers. And we got ourselves a compelling, somewhat historic Champions League finals. If this finals was like 20 years ago, it'd be the biggest thing on the planet because Liverpool is really big. Real Madrid is what they are. Now, we got two teams that are way off the pace in the title race. But kind of...
Which has worked to their advantage.
Yeah. Contrasting sides. One team just knows how to win. The other team has arguably the best attack in the competition. Some say in Champions League history.
I was going to ask you about that. What do you think about that narrative?
No.
They're comparing them to MSN?
No.
Not even as good as BBC.
No. Win first, then we'll talk about it.
I don't even think if they win that you puts them on that pedestal.
I know, but win first.
Maybe in like a one-season deal scenario. They've been extremely good, but to put them in that pedestal, that's
do
quick.
It for a few seasons.
Yeah.
No. One team won a historic treble. The other team, they've just been doing it for a very long time, and they've been doing it with one of the Bs. So it's like BC and the rest.
That guy barely gets 20 minutes nowadays.
Yeah. So no, cut, man. If
it's the English media.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Yes.
And it started with the whole Salah Ballon d'Or.
Yes, and I'm so sick of it.
It's English media.
I'm sick
of it. On top of it all, because Liverpool's really popular.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So that whole conglomerate against the Spanish team, they don't like the Spanish as it is.
Well, they're both on some wild. Am I allowed to say shit on here? But they're both both on some wild shit right now because you got the Spanish media telling us that it's going to be a walk in the park for Real Madrid. It very could be. And then we got the English media going in there saying that Liverpool are favorites. Was it 3-0? It wasn't Labs. But someone said that that Real Madrid attack or defense does not want to face that Liverpool attack.
It's probably real.
And I don't know. I feel like I just have so much to say about the final itself just to get into the games. But I feel like we got to do diligence and get into the games. And then we'll touch on how I feel about both of those teams. But the big game was Bayern-Real Madrid.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't even know how that ended in aggregates, but I just know that Real Madrid went through by the skin of their teeth once again.
They get it done, man. And whatever, I know a lot of people, you as well, you're not a huge fan of the Madrid legacy they're leaving behind. But you can't hide the fact that they continue to get it done, regardless of how many teams are better than them on paper or perform better. When push comes to shove, there's something in that locker room. I'm not saying it's Zidane. I don't know if it's the leaders on that team. But there's an X factor to them that from the beginning has been my reason as to I can't bet against them against somebody who's unproven.
They are in the right place
at the right time.
At the right time, because there's no great team in Europe, and I don't think there's been one for. This was by far the worst semifinal, the worst Champions League semifinal, and I'm talking about both ties since I've started watching the competition. By far the worst. You look at it in terms of the mistakes that both sides made throughout the competition, the fact that there's no elite side in the competition. I mean, we could go back year after year and there's at least one or two great sides or close to great sides, and somehow they both end up pitting up against each other. Here, we got none of that. We got Bayern, who are basically over the hill because I don't think the youngsters are good enough to take over that legacy, and they will need to go through a rebuilding period in Europe specifically. We have Real Madrid, who have not played well. And I'm sorry, I'm not buying the whole we're gearing up for 16 games of the season just to get it done. They didn't win the group. They didn't win the group. They didn't win the group, okay? They lost. They didn't win that group, and they came in second to Spurs.
Yeah.
That's a huge indictment. That's one reason why they are not the greatest. No, okay? No.
But they're doing something that's unprecedented.
Yes, but
Regardless of in the era of those great teams, there's never been anything like this.
they're right place, right time. There are certain factors that come into play with that.
I bring it back to your LeBron thing. You're big on LeBron gets it done when you have to, right? And that's what Real Madrid does. When needed, no matter the narratives that are all behind it. In the last 5 years, they've got it done.
I'm hoping you're not going to Nick Costos me, but I'm really hoping you're not going to Nick Costos me.
Only I knew who that was.
I didn't know who he was until he tweeted out what he tweeted yesterday. So I'm not going to shout him out. But
You already did. See? That's how you get talked about.
Shout out, Nick. No, because this is totally different. In North American sports, the playoffs is all that matters. I'm not buying that the Champions League that is all that matters, okay? And I'm solely not buying that because there's another team. There are two other teams in that Spanish La Liga top tier Spanish division that are there fighting for a league title. 38 games. And when you are 20, close to 20 points off, plus 15 points off, you can't, okay? You can't. The Champions League is great. It's a knockout competition. Some will say it defines the best team in Europe, but throughout this run, I think they've been the best team in Europe once. And I think you can make that case last season.
They're the best Champions League team.
Yeah, but how much stock can you take into that?
Well,
Because there's a lot of things that have to go. There are a lot of things that have to go your way.
Oh, 100%. In any cup tournament, bounces go your way, injuries here, there.
And to make something clear, I think this is bad solely because they're 20 points off of the worst Barcelona side I've seen in the past decade. But I have to say that throughout this span, they've been very fortunate not to face Barcelona in any of those. And some of it is down to Barca not making it that far, but just not to go up against them. I think that's fair because even when we look at last year when they won the league, they couldn't beat Barca head-to-head. They weren't good enough to beat them head-to-head. I don't think they would beat them head-to-head. But I just think there's so much that comes into play, and I don't think I could use, let's say, how many games are there in the round of 16? 2, semifinals 2.
Yeah.
Quarterfinals 2, semifinals 2.
Final 1.
You show up for what, 7 games?
Yeah.
You play 60 in a season. 60. That's not even 25%, okay? When Nick Costos comes out here and tweets, has the audacity to tweet, if Real win the Champions League again, I don't want to hear about the messy Pep Barca teams. Man, you ain't even better than the Bayern team that won the treble. Okay? You haven't even won a treble.
Yeah.
You won one. They've won 2 league titles since Ronaldo has been there.
Yeah.
That's 38 times. How many?
Yeah. Hey, they show up for the cup competition.
But that's.
It's not good enough. Am I saying that doesn't put them in the realm of? See, when I look at it, I don't think greatest Champions League team makes you the greatest team in all of Europe.
Yeah.
I think they're two separate things.
Okay.
I think people often fuse them together.
Yes, and that is
totally
the biggest
unfair.
problem because,
like you said, you're talking about a dozen games,
yeah,
as opposed to a 38-team tournament.
That is the biggest problem because if Real Madrid win this tournament in the next few weeks, and that would be their 4th in 5 years?
5 years.
That's what we're saying. If you want to come to me and say that they're the best Champions League team, arguably ever,
they have to be.
Then sure.
But
Yes.
Does that automatically put them on the pedestal of
No.
greatest team?
No.
Not necessarily, because it's a diluted question.
No.
It's like how can you even answer that?
You cannot win 2 league titles. How long has Ronaldo been there? 2010?
It's been close to a decade now.
You cannot win 2 league titles in 8 years and tell me that you are the greatest team ever. And they've won 1 since Zidane's been there, and they've won once since Mourinho left. Like, they've won 2, okay?
Yeah.
So they won 2. They're not. That conversation cannot happen. Win some league titles. You play to win. People have this misconception that they play to win the Champions League.
No, that's
And if that was the case, then the Champions League would go throughout the season.
of course. What's the point of having the
What's the point of
actual
having the
season?
league?
Exactly.
They play to win the league.
If that was the case, then the other teams wouldn't show up for
They,
the rest of the
they
league.
play to win the league, and they don't get it done. They're awful.
Yeah. They
Consistency.
They struggle to have to be
It's
consistent.
not North American sports.
Yeah.
You don't save it up for the Champions League. Okay, they're just not good enough, and they end up even this year. I don't think they've been that good. And yes, we're gonna go to the. I know where you're going with this, and I agree with you that you need that mental toughness, that grit, that ability to win when you're not playing well, and that's why cup competitions are the way they are. The best team doesn't always win the cup competition.
Yep.
Most of the time, the best team never wins a cup competition.
Yeah.
Depends on matchups.
Of course.
Because if, for instance, Manchester City doesn't draw Liverpool, who is head-to-head a terrible matchup for them, you can make a case that they're in the final.
Yeah, very much so. What I was going to say is this year, especially this year, the fact that they've put out PSG, perennial favorites, and washed their league, for whatever you take that for, put out Juventus, who are on the cusp of another Scudetto, put them out, and now you put out Bayern, who have washed their league. Take that for whatever it's worth. This year especially, they've come across competition that should have potentially knocked them off.
Yes.
So in that realm, I have to give them some credit for that, because it's not the year prior where they went through, what was it? Not the year prior, but a couple years back. The 3 German teams.
Yeah, when I told, and they were all rubbish.
Right? So in that realm, I have to give them some credit for what they're doing.
But they did something similar last year, and I think last year was more impressive than what they did this year. I forgot who they got in the first round last year, but I know that they came across. I'm pretty sure they came across Atletico last year, and they came across Bayern last year, and there was someone else that they came across. And I found that even then, they didn't play that great, and they relied on Ronaldo to be the difference maker, and he was the difference maker. But they saved their best performance for the final last year.
They played Napoli.
Okay, so they played
Napoli in the round of 16.
Yes.
They played Bayern in the quarters.
Yes.
And they played Atletico in the semis.
Yes.
And then went on to beat
and I found that more impressive, and I thought the final performance, specifically in the second half, was very impressive, and they won. This season, their factors are coming, like...
Yeah, of course. They played PSG without a Neymar in the second leg.
Yeah.
They could have very easily
lost. They should have very easily lost that whole...
in the first leg.
Yeah. They got the lucky bounce, the changes
things
that
went
were
their way
made.
towards the end of the game.
Yeah. You look at the Juventus.
They almost bottled it.
Yeah. Well, Juventus isn't Juventus.
And here as well, it was barring if Ribery can finish or somebody in Bayern Munich finds their shooting boots.
Yeah.
Lewandowski, I don't know where he was for 2 games. Mueller missed I don't know how many chances.
Is Lewandowski washed?
He didn't make.
Do we gotta get Lewandowski out of here?
He didn't make a good case to get out of there.
Because boy, if that was Gonzalo Higuain, we'd be talking a lot about it.
Yeah.
But Lewandowski missed some big chances, and we hear a lot about him. He was not good.
No, not good enough.
He was not.
He
was not good.
They were relying on how old's Ribery to be the catalyst of that team.
Yeah.
He can only take you so far.
He did better with Alaba.
Not having Robin as well. That's another thing that played in.
Not having Vidal. Somehow Kimmich scored
again.
both legs. I do not know what the hell Thiago is. I do not know why people are so high on him.
Gonna call him Houdini. He disappears, man.
He's a good. I could see the talent and I could see the potential.
Yeah.
But I think he's overrated.
That only takes you so far, right?
I think he's overrated.
At some point, there's got to be product on the field.
I think we gotta bring him down to earth. But yeah, and to even make that case, Bayern were arguably the better side over both legs.
And once again, we've been saying on this since episode 19. We've probably been saying this since the first episode. Keylor Navas is a lot better than what the mainstream fan gives credit to.
Yes.
He made the most saves that he's made, I believe. I think it was like 8 or 9 alone in that second leg.
Keylor's made some mistakes throughout this tournament, and people have been quick to jump on him, but he bailed them out. And he's done it. It is not the first time he's bailed Real out. I'm not giving them that, man. I'm not giving them that. I'm not.
No love.
And I'm not giving them that. If we're going to do apples to oranges, we're not going to include the year Ancelotti won. So even if Nick Kostos compares this to Pep's Barca, and we're looking at it from a 3-year span, the first year they washed it. And they did need that Iniesta goal to win, to get past Chelsea, but they washed through that, and they were dominant in the finals, destroyed that United side that's arguably an all-time great side too.
And that's coming off a year where you're supposed to, that's his first
Rebuilding,
season.
yeah.
It's supposed to be a rebuild.
The second year, Messi hits his stride. That's when you're like, okay, this guy's for real. That's when people started to compare him to the Cruyffs and the Maradonas and whatnot. And I don't think there's any shame in losing to that Inter side, because I don't think any team in Europe over the past 5 years could defend as good as that Inter side could. And let's just say they were treble winners.
Yep. And arguably had the Ballon d'Or winner in their side that year too.
Yes.
Who didn't get any love that year for whatever reason.
Well,
that's a whole nother thing, but.
Yeah. I'm going to pull up my tweets for that. We're going to save that for another day. But yes, I know where you're going with that. And then the final year, the third year, or we can even add in the fourth year, but we'll start with the third year. That was possibly the best Barcelona side we've seen. Possibly the best side we've seen. You look back to that 5-0 El Clasico win when Mourinho was there. You look at them beating that Madrid side, controversial, but over those 2 legs, they beat them. And then what they did to United at Wembley.
There's just no answers to them. And that's where I think that conversation changes, because that Barcelona team did changed how a lot of teams, and I might argue the fact that it changed modern day football.
Revolutionized.
And that needs to be given credit to. The same way that I hear people speak of how Cruyff revolutionized football in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
When you're talking about great teams, it's more than trophies.
Yeah.
It's impact on the game.
Impact, style, Champions Leagues come into play, but I also think that the dominance in the league, and you have to look at it as they were going head-to-head, and that Madrid side pushed them. It wasn't like they washed through. That Madrid side pushed them, and they won, except for the 1 year that they didn't win. But they won 3 out of those 4 years. This Madrid side's won once.
Yeah.
And the other 2 seasons, they weren't there. And that's where Nick Kostos, I have the tweet right here, just needs to pump the brakes.
It's human nature. When we're witnessing something, we want it to be the best.
But you weren't even witnessing.
But that's what I mean, though. When you live through something, you want to be the person to say, look, this is better than what it was. Right?
I'll tell you this. 5 years from now, apart from the fact that you could go back and say that they won, there will be nothing about these wins, unless they steamroll Liverpool. There'll be nothing about these Champions League runs that you'll be talking about in 5 or 6 years.
But unfortunately, in 5 or 6 years, or 10 or 20 or 30, that's not going to matter. What's going to matter is some kid is going to go look up the history book on Wikipedia, and he's going to see Real Madrid trophy, didn't get a trophy, potentially another one.
You think so? Because there are teams that have done that, and I don't think we
if you're a purist and you go look way back, you
Okay.
have to give those sides some credit, right?
Okay. Yeah. But I'm just talking about like the average soccer fan, because like we talk about those Barca side. We don't talk about the Bayern side, and I think they have a great case of being one of the better sides of the past 20 years. But we talk about that Barca side, and it's because of the points that you nailed. And that's why I can't go as far as Nick Kostos wants to go with.
Yeah.
Saying becomes the greatest in modern history. Yo, his name is so fire. The Kostos part, like, I think that's why I keep saying it.
That's a perfect name.
But
That's definitely Croatian, right?
I don't want to say Croatian or Greek. But
Depends how it's spelled, I guess.
that's why we're not going that far.
Yeah. I
say
get what
the
you're
least.
saying. That
There's no impact.
league play is one thing, Champions League is a different thing.
I don't think you could just win the and you know what? If they did it with like some sort of dominance, like whatever, a win's a win at the end of the day. But but there's a difference between being a winner and being the greatest in modern history.
Yeah.
Like if they steamrolled these teams, then I'd be like, you know what? Hey, we can maybe put those league.
You can't be the greatest team just because you won a cup competition.
Yeah,
The greatest teams have transcended both.
yeah.
League and cup.
You gotta dominate both.
Yeah, exactly. There's two things.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I can't agree fully with it.
Yeah, because they're winning.
They're-
Look. If
They get it done.
Look, if you're
As wild as it is.
yeah, they do, and that's the other thing, because all in this is that Zidane's gonna get a lot of credit, and I don't think he's as great as a coach as. Wow, I seem like a real Real Madrid hater right now, but he is not what we're trying to make him out to be, and I think he gets very, very.
He's pulled the right strings this year.
Yeah,
He's been able to go to a 4-4-2 with Asensio and Lucas when he's needed fullback protection. He's gone with Isco and played the diamond. So I think in that sense he deserves a little bit of credit. He's shown versatility, when to pull the right string, when to make the substitution. Against Juventus in that second half, he brought the two wide players on, changed the game. In the second leg of this game, he played with Benzema. Benzema scored 2 goals. I'm not saying one of them was simply given to him. It was a joke.
yeah. But I can't excuse it, because he played Benzema, but what did they really do over those in that game? Like, yeah, I know they scored.
They didn't do much in either.
They didn't do much, and I think that's an indictment on him. And you're up 3-0, and you're up 3-0 against that Juve side, and Barzagli or Buffon and Chiellini, that mess changes everything.
Of
So
course.
you had a Juve side completely out of sorts. You beat them 3-0, and then you go home and you allow that.
Put on that performance, yeah, it's not good enough.
You're home against PSG, and for what it's worth, I know a lot of people are going to give PSG. I know definitely you're not going to give PSG this, but most teams that make those big changes, we give them the second season before we fully evaluate them. So I wasn't on the harp saying that they were going to win the competition this year, but I will say that we expected them to go further than they did.
Yeah.
But they went to the Bernabeu and they looked like the home
They
side.
put on a damn good performance.
With Pembe playing center back, okay?
Yeah.
They look like the home side there. So that is where it all comes. Like, yes, they won, but we can't. If we're gonna, I know where you're going with this, but if we're saying greatest or best, we can't ignore everything that goes along with how they got to the finals and the manner that they did it. And I know they say that great teams make their own luck, but man, this is not. They ain't making their own luck unless they're doing some witchcraft. This is out of the source, because there is no tactical scheme that you could define with Zidane to say that, they played this way, or they had this plan B, or it's just.
I think they have such good players that
it is
make up for the lack of sometimes technical, like tactical quality.
You hit the nail on the coffin. You hit the nail right there. Because European football in the past 3 to 4 years has been on a decline, and no one wants to admit it. No one wants to admit it. The Champions League is the greatest tournament in the sport. So how could we be on a decline? But it's been on decline. There's been no great team since that Bayern side. I don't think that Barcelona side, I know they won the treble, but I think they were solely reliant on, they discovered that counterattack halfway through the season, and they were so reliant on just punting the ball forward to Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. And I'm not giving them that. Yeah. I think that Bayern side from 2012, 2013 is better than that treble-winning Barcelona side. I don't think they were that good. But I think that they've come into this era where they've allowed Zidane to do whatever he wants. I think that's great on the Madrid hierarchy to allow him to pull the strings that most managers that have been in that helm hasn't been able to do. But they've entered this spell where there's been no one. They have the best midfield, and I think that's helped them throughout. The defense is still the defense. They have the best left back.
Yeah.
They have a competent right back who makes some mistakes, but he's competent compared to the rest.
I love how you said competent.
They got 2 center backs. They got one that could be really great, and he's probably the best young center back in the world. And they got one that makes a lot of mistakes, but now they put Casemiro in front of him, so he doesn't have to make as many mistakes as he used to, okay? But they got the best midfield in the world. They got some great attackers, and they got the second best player in the world, and arguably a top 5 to 7 player ever. I'm just saying 5 to 7 just to. I would like to say that he's top 5. I'd like to say he's possibly 2.
Yeah.
You know? So they have that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, but.
They have that. So on most days, they're going to beat you because talent, in this case, I feel like talent has outweighed everything else. Because when you look at the way they've won the finals, they've went toe-to-toe Atletico Madrid, arguably in that spell, the best defensive team in the past, let's say, since that Mourinho side, in terms of just sitting deep and bogging down.
And what unlocked that?
Penalty shots. Twice.
A late header.
Something
that has no tactics involved in it whatsoever.
Diego Costa didn't play because he got hurt because he tried to be Superman with that hamstring. So that. And there's just nothing there. There's just... It sounds bad because it's like, look, they're going to win 4 out of there's a good chance they're going to win 4 out of the last 5, okay? Unprecedented. Fantastic. Record books. But sometimes we just got to pump it a bit. Just relax. Relax. They are what they are. And I don't think anyone else, just given how everything's worked out, no real severe injuries. Yes, Bale, but they've had enough talent to go through that. No real injuries. They've lost a manager, bring in a manager. It somehow works out. Like everything has just gone their way, and they have a very good team.
100%.
They've had the best midfield in the world for a very long time.
And now their young players have stepped up when needed.
Yes.
A lot of teams haven't had young players step up like they have.
And in all of that, Ronaldo hasn't declined like many thought he would.
Yeah.
And that's been pivotal. And that's where I go with them. But
they're a very good side, but greatest of all time. There has to be, like I said, there's got to be a mix of both league and.
I compare it to what we see with like Ancelotti, where a lot of people say is one of the best managers ever. But that whole thing with Ancelotti is based off him winning the Champions League a few times. I think 3. Could be wrong. But you go ask Carlo how many league titles he's won. And I think that's what separates him. I'm not going to say it's easy to win the Champions League, but I think that teams, managers, players, you got to be defined by that 38-game season.
I think they go hand in hand. I don't know if they're defined by it, I think they go hand in hand with one another.
Well, yes, you need obviously you need a bit of both, but I feel like the league, especially when you're going head to head with Barcelona, you gotta win the league. Have to.
You have to at least compete for the league.
Yes.
Never mind win the damn
Well,
league.
yes. You can't have as in the past 5 years, you can't have as many league titles as your city rival who has no business even being in the equation, considering how much money you spend compared to them. And I think that's where Real is. But we've just totally went off the hell with Real Madrid.